5 next year. And I travel around to multiple buildings, and it's mostly general with a smattering of choral here and there. So Becky?
I'm Becky Sensor, and I've been teaching in the Du Bois Area School District for the last 19 years. This will be my 20th year. And I now teach 5th and 6th grade general music, and I've taught 6th through 8th grade choir all 19 years. So that's what I do.
Krista?
I'm Krista Carney. I'm currently teaching pre-K through 6 general music at Shamokin. This is my 25th year teaching, and I've taught band, orchestra, chorus, general music, pre-K through 12.
Ryan?
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Okay, great. I just built a new computer, but I didn't get a webcam yet. Anyway, I just graduated from IUP. I just finished student teaching. I actually got my certification from PDE yesterday morning. So that's
Congratulations.
Good. Yeah,
That's exciting.
Thanks. So yeah, I'm looking for jobs. I've put out 18 applications so far, heard back from 5, which is good.
That is good.
I'm shooting for middle school or high school band, but you know, I'll take whatever will hire me at this point. So yeah.
Cool. Nadia? All right, Nadia, if you want to share later, you just unmute. I'll see that. Danielle?
Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Cullen. Like Becky, I just finished my 19th year of teaching. I teach K-5 general music and chorus in the Downingtown Area School District.
And Darby, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us where you're or not where, but what level or what you hope to teach? You're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yep.
Awesome. Okay, so I just graduated from Westchester University. I recently got a job in New Jersey teaching middle school orchestra. So I'm very excited for that.
Congratulations. That is
Thank you
exciting.
so
And Ashley, do you want to share with us what grade level you're teaching? Anything else you want to tell us? You don't have to. Oh, there you go.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm in Erie with Erie Public Schools, and I do general music K-5.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for indulging us. And I hope that's the start of all that you're going to say tonight. You're welcome to jump in anytime, ask questions, ask for clarification, or please share your own thoughts and your own experiences. And to start with, we're going to talk a little bit about curriculum. And one of the things you have to know about curriculum before you can even get into the planning of that is what resources you have. So does anybody out there want to share when it comes to curriculum writing you've done or planning you've done, as far as the different variety there is of the people that have to come together to make curriculum happen? Anybody?
I can talk about that a little bit. I know we were planning this a little bit. We talked about this Sunday. When you're asked to write curriculum, oftentimes if you're in a school district that has resources like a curriculum instructor or a curriculum, head of curriculum, coordinator, something like that, obviously that's a good person to contact about this. If you're part of a department, obviously it's a good idea to make sure your curriculum's flowing together with the grade levels, either, below you or ahead of you. I'm in the middle, so I always think, both sides. So there's a team around you to talk about. Now, if you're in a really small school district, you might be the only music teacher. There might be a few music teachers. You might not have a curriculum coordinator. So I think it's good to get an idea from maybe other arts teachers, your principal, just different people. I think it's always good to have another pair of eyes, I guess is what I'm saying, and to have a team with you while you're building this to bounce ideas off of and make sure it's meeting district requirements and furthering where you need the kids to be at the next level.
Yeah. Hey, before we keep talking about curriculum and people, I totally dissed Marissa and I didn't let her introduce herself. I'm so sorry, Marissa. I was reading down the participant names, and when I saw PMEA webinars, I didn't even connect it with a human body. I'm sorry, but Marissa LeBlanc is here from PMEA office.
Oh, no worries. I'm at the office, and I'm the director of events and education.
Thanks, Marissa. And Nadia also chimed in on the chat box. You guys can read about her 24 amazing years of experience at K-5, chorus, recorder club, and African drumming. That is quite the variety. I bet that keeps you on your toes. So back to curriculum and the people that are the resources that help us build curriculum. We also, of course, have the PMEA mentor program. So if you ever find yourself in an instance where you have to build a curriculum and you don't know where square one is, or you get to the 6th step and now you get stuck and you don't know what to do, you can always reach out to the mentor program. PMEA also has the model curriculum framework. Yeah, that's it, which is an online resource through pmea.net that has a template for building curriculum that you fill in the boxes, and it has hints to guide you every step of the way if you're a person that likes to work on their own that way. Sometimes in your district, you build your own team, right? So sometimes it's an entire department coming together. Sometimes people are selected from different segments of the music department K-12 to build the curriculum, like kind of like an initial subgroup to build it out, and then go to the rest of the team. And there's lots of multiple Facebook groups and other social media things that can help you out there at that too. One of the other resources you should always check for before you go about doing this is what you have available in your school district. It might be an old curriculum. It might be a textbook series. Has anybody out there used the textbook series in the past to write a curriculum or to help write a curriculum? Krista's waving her hand, kind of. I know that sometimes the textbook series get a bad rap. I think that it has its use. This is just me personally talking. I think there's things in textbook that you can draw from that are kind of sparks to build your own fire and make the curriculum your own. So don't be afraid to see what's available. Lots of times textbooks will bring something up as like a unit or a chapter, and you realize you've forgotten it in your curriculum altogether. You totally forgot about that part of music because you were so focused on other things. So also, the teachers before you, they might leave behind a complete curriculum that nobody knew was in their drawer. So before you get too worried about building a curriculum from scratch, check and see what you already have available there. And I know some of us already use existing curriculums created by other sources. I think, Krista, you use Music Play, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I use Music Play. It's actually from Denise Gagne and Artie Almeida. And if you don't know who they are, just Google them. They do lots and lots of music ed things. They started this about 10 years ago. I'm just going to share my screen because I have a link, and you can actually sign up for, maybe I'm going to share my screen. I'm just doing it poorly. Hang on. You can sign up for a 3-month trial offer so that you get to check it out, and there's no cost for the trial. It's just musicplay.com.
Music Play Online?
Yeah, musicplayonline.com. And it comes up, and they have everything from pre-K through 6 in English and French, because Denise is from Canada. They also have Facebook groups, and they're wonderful. They reply back in, sometimes a matter of minutes. And all of this is on there. You can go through every single grade, and it's coordinated with the national standards, the NAFME ones. And then they also have the units and lesson planning and, series about all this kind of stuff. So that I use this to write my curriculum. When I had to do it this past year, I'm actually still in the process of it because they didn't have a curriculum. Where I'm at right now, they did away with all enrichments from pre-K through 9th grade in 2012 and didn't bring back general music until fall of 2017. So then after I was there for a few years, they said, oh yeah, you need to have a curriculum. And the curriculum director put it very nicely and said, yeah, like, if you died, nobody would know what to do. Okay. So anyway, that's the story of how I got to write my curriculum this year.
Does anybody else use something that is created from an external source that has really benefited you and you just kind of ran with it? So sticking with elementary general for a second, my district, we really use a lot of Feyerabend. If you're not familiar with John Feyerabend, there's a couple, I personally feel, advantages to what he does. It's very music centered. It's very music making centered, I should say. The kids are constantly making music. They're engaged in social skills quite often. It really easily lends itself to assessment, performance assessment. It's chunked. So especially for our youngest students, you get a lot into a lesson and they very rarely ever lose attention to it. Also, it pulls in literacy as well. I mean, it just has a ton of things in it. There's a lot of resources, including recordings and videos for this teacher as professional development toward it. And he also offers professional development that you can take with him, you know, travel and take, I don't even want to guess at how long it is, but it's multiple days in order to teach the curriculum the way that he intended. And sometimes when you're building a curriculum, some districts will include professional development in that process. And so if you do research and you find something that includes something, in this case, I'm talking about Feyerabend's, but there's other people that do that as well. Sometimes that can be included in the process of developing your curriculum, is actually going and taking professional development on it with the people that created it. Another thing you can do when it comes time to fill out that conference request form is you can always put that one of the reasons you're going is to look for curriculum sources when it comes time to curriculum build. So that's one of the reasons why you want to go to the conference. That's also a good one to put in there. Anybody else with these, you know, already written curriculums? Anybody want to share anything about that?
So I was part of curriculum writing in my district, maybe only my second or third year that I was hired. And then periodically we update our curriculum, and most recently we have like a team of people. So I was part of a team of people who actually had started it the previous summer, and then I worked alongside three other music teachers last summer, just general music teachers that, you know, in my district there are 10 K-5 general music teachers, so it was 4 of us from that group of 10. And we were basically just updating the curriculum to fit with this new format. I think it was maybe, now it's not coming to mind what it was called, but just kind of fitting the puzzle, like the pieces into the this new template. And I would say that our curriculum really isn't connected to like a textbook series. We do have them. We have a bunch. Like we have the Gagne, like the listening resources, and we now have Game Plan, was purchased for all of our schools. And it's, you know, like part of like a reference or resource list, but I guess like our curriculum doesn't like follow one of those. It's more used, I guess, as like a recipe book for the teachers or just a resource. But I would say that our curriculum is mostly like Kodai based. It follows like the Kodai sequence for which concepts to introduce, reinforce, develop, and assess in the various grade levels. And we've had to update our curriculum because students, you know, the frequency with how often our students have music class has changed, you know, in the past 10 years, from once a week to once every 5 days to once every 6 days. So, you know, that drastically affects what you can cover, you know, in the curriculum. So I don't know if we're like what the schedule is for updating, like if it's every 5 years or so. So hopefully we'll be good for, you know, a few more years. Oh, and also to jump on the Feyerabend. So I took conversational solfege level 1 at Westchester a few, probably like 10 summers ago. But yeah, he does offer, and it's just, it was 1 week, Monday through Friday, you know, just like one of those in kind of intensive courses. And also, like Terry, like you said, I think every conference there's someone from Feyerabend's camp. I know there was somebody at last year's summer conference. just look for tuneful, artful, beatful, and you know that it's something to do with fire oven.
Yeah. And here's the next thing that I have written down here that we came up with. Build over time by adding what works for you and your students. So it's kind of, Danielle just kind of segued into that for us. Whatever you start your curriculum with, the more people you talk to, the more sources you're going to pull from. And then by the time you're finished, you'll have something that fits, your team. Or if you're the only teacher, that fits you well. And the beautiful thing about curriculum is that it's not something that's going to be written in like a one-day in-service. It's going to grow as you grow in your career too. So you'll just keep adding to it. So when Becky was writing her curriculum, or maybe after the fact, her district inserted STEAM into everything, right?
Yeah.
So how did that affect what you had to do?
It was around the same time, 2 years ago, our district closed. We had 8 elementary schools. They closed 4 of the elementary schools, and they brought 5th grade into our middle school. So our middle school became a 5 through 8. And they wanted to take that time, and there was 2 reasons for it, and they were both very good reasons. One, they really did want to open up the exploratory courses at the middle school. They thought, if we're changing things anyway, this is the time to add things. But they also didn't want anyone to get furloughed in closing schools and moving things around. So we have 32 exploratory 9 weeks classes throughout the 4 years that people are in our building. And they really wanted to have a STEAM focus or 2, I guess, STEAM focus classes in each of those years. And because students have like 8 of these classes every year. And so they came to me and they're like, can music be STEAM? I'm like, of course it can. That's what A is art. So yeah, music can be STEAM. Anything can be STEAM. I didn't want to say that to them. Like, it was my boss. So I was gonna be like, anything can be STEAM. So we wrote some STEAM into our curriculum. We wrote around, designing instruments, recycled instrument project, which I got to actually do a little lecture on with Terry at Gettysburg College this year. It was a lot of fun. We added that because you're creating your building, and really even like talking about how instruments produce sound and everything with STEAM. So we added STEAM into things. My school district is very big on project-based learning right now. That was another thing they started when they started opening, reconfiguring the schools. And I've been doing project-based learning for years. That's really how we built our curriculum, was around projects. So I was really ahead of the curve on that. So I was like, done. So when they said we want everyone's plan for project-based learning this year, I was like, so done with that. I have that. So, I mean, those are all things that kind of have come up over the years, that when they're like jumping on this, sometimes they're a few years behind, but when they're like, oh, we're going to jump on this, I'm like, I already learned about that at a conference and I've already been doing that. So yeah, that's one way that it really affected us at our school. Plus I will add this too, plus being middle school, when you talk about series of books and things that you add in, I have yet to find a really good curriculum in a book for that age level. Even for 5th grade, when they were in the elementary school, they did a book series, but for what we do every day for 9 weeks, none of that fit, and none of that really fit the STEAM and the project-based learning. So even with that, everyone's like, hey, we'll give you all the books. And I was like, I don't think I want the books. I think we're going to do something else. So you got to kind of see what works best for your whole building, I guess, and the way you see your kids.
Yeah, well, speaking of whole building, so another thing we thought would be important to talk about as far as a curriculum, and this is going to lead us shortly into philosophy, is sometimes when you're building curriculum, you have to consider the constraints you have, because I imagine, in an ideal world where every student had music for a portion of every single day, man, the stuff we could get done. Yeah. They would know so much. They would be able to do so much. They'd be able to make music in so many different ways, but that's rarely the reality we live in. So as far as some constraints that you have to work into when you're building your curriculum, things like scheduling, and Danielle, you mentioned you had changed how many times you got to see them, how frequently you got to see them. You also need to consider the instructional materials in your class. So for example, is the only instrument available in your general music classroom boom whackers? So that could definitely affect your pedagogy. Is the only, do you have absolutely no low brass players or instruments available to you? for your high school band. I mean, that's going to affect your curriculum. That's going to affect your repertoire choice, which is definitely a part of your curriculum. So does anybody have anything they want to share in regards to that, how a schedule or your frequency with seeing them or things available in your classroom? Or Mike, I think you wanted to talk a little bit maybe about the course offerings that you made available where you are at.
Yeah, I mean, I could do that if you'd like.
Sure.
We've been talking mostly about elementary music for so far, and I just so you know where I'm coming from. I sort of have had two parts to my career. The first part to my career, I taught 7 years as a middle school music teacher, and I did general music, I did choir, I did band, and just when I started to figure out what I was doing, I moved to the high school, and I've been teaching high school band, choir, modern band, music technology and theory and a whole bunch of fun stuff like that in a small school district. And I've been doing that for 8 years now. So I've been teaching for 15 years. And one of the things that when you go to the high school level, when you talk about philosophy and curriculum, one of the things that really changes is that at the high school level, it's almost all elective. And that really, so the way I have to think about my philosophy and curriculum at the high school is totally different than when I was a middle school music teacher. And I find myself, starting by asking questions like, what percentage of the student body should be involved in a high school music program? Because it's not going to be 100%. I want it to be 100%, but it's not going to be 100%. And whenever I have these electives or whenever I design my courses, I often have to think of things like, what do I want my students to be getting out of this course? Music is one component of that, but that's not the only reason students sign up for music classes. And you have to be kind of sensitive to all of those things. For example, the social component and stuff like that. And how do you balance those sorts of things with your curriculum and your philosophy? So as far as course offerings go, you kind of have to decide, I think, whether you want your program to look very traditional or whether you want your program to look very progressive. And kind of in that whole realm, I think you also have to kind of think about the cultural context of where you're working to kind of put all that together. We have a rock band at Cambria Heights, for example, that works very well in our particular area, but that may not work well. There may be a different music elective that makes sense in your area. But I can tell you that, administrators have been coming to a lot of the high school teachers. I have a lot of friends that are in the same boat, just as Rebecca was talking a moment ago about expanding the elective offerings. That's something that the administration is very big on right now. They really want to see students involved in music and not just performing ensembles. And, it's really made us as high school directors and I'm pleased to see as middle school and elementary teachers as well, kind of rethink, what are we offering? What are we going to do? And we have, it's a wild west, music technology courses, modern band courses, drumming courses, guitar ensemble courses, and I think that's where programs are headed. And I think that you really have to look at the culture of the district that you're in and the resources that are available to you and make some good decisions there. And then you got to figure out, what are you going to do professionally to grow and be able to teach those courses, because that's a consideration as well. Even how are you going to grade those courses? Grading is something that I think that I don't know how it works in an elementary setting, but at a high school setting, that's something that I struggle with philosophically all the time. Just for if I give, in my particular situation, if I give a kid a C, they're never coming back to band. So I've got to find a way to give every single kid a pathway to that 100% in band if they want it, or they're not going to take my course. You know, that's the reality of it. And, you know, that's kind of crazy. It's not the utopia that we want, but it's the situation. So you kind of have to be very, very creative in that context. So again, with course offerings, traditional or progressive course offerings, I think that progressive is the way you should be thinking about this, thinking about how you're going to sustain those, what course offerings make sense, how are you going to grow professionally to be able to facilitate those courses, and then how are you going to grade those courses? A lot of things to think about there.
So Mike, lead us to how you came to the decision that a rock band was how you could involve more students that were outside your program. What led to that discovery that somebody else might be able to look for to find what works for theirs?
Right. So I think the thing that you need to look at in your student body is, you know, is there music going on in your community, or is there music going on among the students that you're not connected to? You know, and in our particular district, you know, everybody has an uncle or a friend or a family member that plays acoustic night at the local pub on the weekends or something like that. And a lot of kids, you know, they're buying their guitars, they're making music, they're doing all this stuff. And it became very evident to me and my coworker at the time that, you know, there was all of this music going on kind of in spite of us. And we wanted to invite that music into our realm. And the same could be said for, you know, kids that are producing videos on YouTube, or more of a technological approach to it. You know, it's not just rock music or something like that. But I think that that's something that we miss a lot of times. I think a lot of times that we think, okay, choir and band, that's where it's at. You know, we need to get the kids into choir and band, and sometimes that's nice, but you know, some of my best choir and band kids have come into my program via one of my other music elective courses, and I think that that's a very important thing to understand, especially with the big push being music for all and that sort of thing. You know, with not just us, but that's something that I think the administration's onto too. I really think that they're very hip to that.
So he brings up another good point about the technology and how a lot of times that's how students choose to make their music. And it's definitely worldwide way to make the music right now, right? You can really get more people to hear what it is you have to express yourself with musically. Is there anybody that has found that that's impacted your curriculum or your philosophy, or even just the way that you have kids making music? Has anybody gone that route yet?
I know that we, one of our first lessons we do in our 6th grade group is classes. We do a rap project, and we use GarageBand, and they write all their background music on GarageBand. And it's before we did 5th grade and kind of had a flow into 6th grade from that. It was like, don't even worry about what the rhythm is, just come up with sounds good to you, and then we kind of break it down from there. But yeah, they were creating stuff on GarageBand for their background track, and then they'd record their rap. You know, they'd work in groups to do it. We'd use the iPads. It made it really, really easy. I know right now our school has a grant to teach STEAM classes in the summer. Any of us could teach STEAM classes this summer. And again, anything STEAM. So I'm teaching guitar and ukulele classes. My husband's teaching a electronic music and keyboard class. And, you know, most of the kids that signed up to do keyboard are listening to some of the projects online that the kids are doing the electronic part of it, and they all just want to do that. They think it's the coolest thing ever. And so that's something, you know, we're tying in directly with technology and STEAM. And I'd love to tell you the program he's using, but I can't even remember what it is right now. He's not using GarageBand, but it's web-based. Everything's web-based. So we have that. I don't know how many of you have gone to any of the Modern Band or Little Kids Rock things, but my school got really excited about that when we said, you know, the 3 of us that teach at the middle school, we said we want to go to one of these sessions. They asked what it was about. They were ready to just dictate that we were going to do it like K-12, and we're like, slow down a little bit, let's see what it's about. But it has been so energizing for my kids. Half of what we do now in 6th grade really revolves around guitar and keyboard, Little Kids Rock, Modern Band stuff. And that has gone into now like 2 Fridays a month for my choir class. I have everything set up, and they know if we have done well that week, they get to they get to do some modern band stuff in choir, and we do some after school modern band stuff. And, you know, I'm kind of straying from technology, I know, but just to kind of piggyback on what Mike was saying, it is energizing for me as a teacher, having taught almost 20 years, to do something different and see the kids get so excited about something that they are into. Even if we weren't doing it in school, they would be into rock band. So that is something that's been different and new.
I've been adding on starting in 4th grade. I start ukuleles in 4th grade, and then I start at keyboards in 5th grade. And I have a class set of 30 ukuleles, and I've kind of cobbled together about 5 keyboards, and I have the kids kind of rotate through and they're in groups and all this kind of stuff. But after going to the Little Kids Rock thing, I've been trying to incorporate more modern band things, even all the way down. So when I do like steady beat things like the little beat buddies, every now and then I, you know, throw in like one of the popular songs that the kids already know. And I mean, it's the same thing where, you know, working on that steady beat and all that kind of stuff. But then they go home and they tell their parents, hey, guess what? We did this at school today too. Or when they hear that song, it kind of, you know, makes them think about it. And then the parents see that we're doing things that actually relate to music outside.
Right. Yeah. Relevant to their
Right.
real life, which is the state standard, as is using technology to create music, right? Those are both standards that should be in everyone's curriculum. Philosophy, I guess that's debatable, but it should be in everybody's curriculum. So I used to do projects where kids were creating different timbres to go along with poems. But in the recent years, I've switched it to, in group, they have to create their own video game, and they have to sell the video game, like to someone's going to buy a video game. But part of that is they have to have a sound effect for every character. And then they have to create a theme song for their video game, you know what I mean? And we do it all by technology. I'm going to share with you these 2 websites. Now, I think they're .com. I think it's patatap.com and typetone.com. But if that doesn't work for you, just Google Patatap. And Patatap's just sound effects. And Typetone it's a way of using the letters on the keyboard to repeat patterns of music. So that's how they build their theme song, with the repeated patterns of music. And then Typetone, they create the different sound effects, right? So now we're not just doing that. We're also talking about timbre. We're talking about how video games influence society and vice versa, and the music behind them, and how the wrong music with the wrong character is laughable and things like that. So we delve into it more from a curricular sense, but it's just an example of how you check the resources you have, what's available to you to use. If you don't have you know, wireless in your classroom, well, then that's not going to be an option for you to do in your classroom. It might have to be a different segment of your curriculum, a one-time thing you do in their room or something like that. So Becky, start going way back to curriculum basics. Becky and I think maybe other people here kind of agree that when you're talking about curriculum, you have to start with your end in mind. What's that competency going to look like? What's the thing that they have to know before they're ready for the next music class or the next wherever they're going to pursue music after they leave your class? What does that look like? What is that about? And Becky, I think you're going to talk to them a little bit about how you go about that process of starting to the end, right?
Yeah. So we have 4 units, 3 or 4 units, depending what year it is, with the middle school music. And when we wrote the curriculum, the most updated curriculum, we really focused on where do we want them when they're leaving us? What do we want them to not just have learned, but to be able, they know it so well they can retain it. So the next time they come back to a music class, it all is very familiar, and you know, they didn't lose that much of it. And so a big thing we do, and I have my little cheat sheet here to help me, but we think of a goal, the end goal, and then we think, how do you assess it? Because that's really comes at the end of learning something, you know what I mean? So we think, how do you assess it? And then after we figured that out, we think, well, what activities lend itself to practicing that skill? So we come up with some activities that are going to help practice the skill we're trying to introduce. And then the last thing I do is figure out how I'm going to introduce it. You know, how can I very simply explain this and then we dive into it and we hands-on tear it apart and use it. And you know, just to get to the point where, yeah, they have this. It's not just I remember it from yesterday and I'm going to forget it tomorrow, and so I did well today. It's, you know what, when I see you next year, I'm going to go, I know what that is because I know it so well. So that's kind of how I think of it. Like, how can we get to the point where it's known, and then back up from there to the last thing, like I said, is how do I introduce it to them?
Right. Yeah. So just building backwards, it always keeps you focused on why you're doing what you're doing, and it kind of drives that instruction. And then for me, like I said, we agree on this, that we start from the end. For me, I always start with these. This is from the SAS portal. So the curriculum that I work with, that my school district works with, in second grade, these competencies right here are what we have built into our curriculum. So at some point of the year, every second grader is going to be assessed on moving and performing melodies in various forms. And based on that assessment, do we go on or do we repeat and revise the way that we're instructing it? And same thing with all these boxes. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, because we did spend a whole lot of time talking about that when we did the elementary general, but that's just a word to curriculum. We always start at the end. And for me, you know, Becky has the unit she was talking about, and for us, we use the competencies. The end is what drives your philosophy. And this is the fun part of the discussion, because once you get into that part of your curriculum, the why, the how you want them to end up, and you start backing up to how we get to that final point, that's when all of the heated arguments begin. Is it TT and ta? Is it do, day, and do? Is it, you know, what note should they start on this instrument or that instrument? Is it, should we let them keep on singing if they're not doing it with the correct posture? These are all the great debate. This is what builds your philosophy. And through this conversation, you start to figure out what's important to you. You know, what do you want your students to know? Because like I said before, even if you were teaching music 24/7, there's just too much of it to get it all in there in a meaningful way. So the debate starts, do we use Macarena, or is that not musically legitimate enough for us to be teaching in school? And I think, and Mike, you kind of talked on this earlier with, and Danielle, you typed this in the box, is it music for all, or do we concentrate on those students that we can see having a future in the field of music? Do anybody want to talk to that a little bit?
I'm going to just jump in.
Oh, everybody, see, I told you this was the good part. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Go ahead, Danielle.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that your personal philosophy is really what drives the bus. I mean, if you to be able to identify your own why did you even enter the profession? Was it a pivotal moment? Was it a person? Was it your desire? Like what was it that drove you into music education? And for some people, I think it is, some people have that pivotal moment where it's like, wow, this is what I want to do and I know why. And other people, maybe it's more of like an, you know, gradually evolves or whatever. But your philosophy is really what helps you determine what I teach, how I teach, when I teach it. So, and I know me personally, that music for all, that is how that is part of my own personal philosophy of music education. And my philosophy has, you know, let's say evolved over the years, but, you know, and interacting with John Feierabend and, you know, other leaders in music education. But what I've started to see is bigger picture. Like when I sit in department meetings and curriculum meetings, and we're arguing over when to introduce fermata or something like that. And yes, I do think these concepts are important, and I think vocabulary is important because you want your students to have a robust vocabulary so they can speak about music intelligently. I get it. When they're 35, if they're not playing an instrument, do they need to know fermata? More than likely not, unless they're on like Jeopardy or something kind of like that. So I think now when I say music for all, I'm thinking more about, yes, those children who are going to play an instrument and who are going to, you know, pursue that, but maybe it'll just be in their community band. It's not going to be as a profession. But music for all, because music is accessible to all in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be playing an instrument. Maybe it's part of their worship, singing happy birthday in tune, or whatever it is, deciding what to listen to on the radio, or recognizing that song, whether or not the singer, like, oh man, that sounds lousy. Well, why does it sound lousy? Like, you know, because they develop taste, and they develop that knowledge of what, you know, sounds good or doesn't, or whatever. But I'm more and more, I'm thinking more big picture, more global, and that's what drives my instruction. So if we don't get to fermata, oh well, like, you know, I have it up on my word wall, maybe we'll refer to it, and that's just one thing. And please don't think that, you know, I mean, bleh. And but it's, where do you want those students to be when they're adults? Do you want them to be knowledgeable consumers? Because music is not an elitist activity. Music is for all. It is for everyone. It's not for those kids who can quote unquote sing or match pitch, or, you know, whatever other parameters you want to throw out there. So I encourage anyone to try to think globally, think bigger picture. And then once you have that end game, you know, working backwards, then that's how you determine what to do on that day to day. And I would hope that your personal philosophy will hopefully also mesh with your, wherever you're teaching, with that mission statement or your school's philosophy. And that's something that you should probably know. I mean, I can't quote mine to you verbatim, but that's, or at least you should know where to find it. So that way you can see at least that your department has a vision, and then you can see, you know, how your own personal philosophy, you know, and your philosophy will change over time. I know mine has. I mean, I'm a different person now than I was 5 minutes ago, because, you know, you're always adapting and changing and learning and growing. But yeah, I'm a big believer in having that personal, if you can't articulate it, work on that, because that's why you're in this profession. If you can't say that why, work on it.
So before we go to you, Krista, the next two lines on our plans here: philosophy changes over time, articulation of your philosophy. Did I send you a copy of this, Danielle? Go ahead, Krista. What were you going to argue?
Oh, okay. I was just going to share a few things. I've been doing a lot of research. I'm actually in the process of writing my dissertation for my PhD, and I'm doing it on using popular music in elementary classroom. And I just want to give you kind of like a little background. From 1890 to 1920 is when school music first kind of all came together and became standardized. And at that time, there was no difference between the music that was worked on outside of school and the music that was worked on inside of school. That was all. It wasn't until like the 1940s and the 1950s that it started to become more classical music based instead of popular music based. And so much so to the point that when it becomes an elective, only 20% of our students are continuing with music. And I mean, I just think that there's so many kids that are missing out on so many benefits to it that, you know, I mean, I used to kind of be an elitist when I first went to college. I was like, you know, I only want to teach band, and I only want to do this, and I'm not. And luckily, I've grown and learned. But yeah, I mean, I can't say it enough. And it's not like classical music was the only way to go, and it's always been this way, and we're erasing this tradition. It's that, you know, it started out with, you know, what they were able to apply in everyday life. And there really isn't any other subject that doesn't, or that only focuses on the history and only focuses on, you know, very elitist kind of things. Every other subject, you know, whether it's an elective subject or whether it's one of their regular school subjects, they try and make connections between their everyday lives. And if we want to survive as music educators, then we need to do that as well.
That is a very interesting point about the reason that basically classical music was the substance of what people did, was because that was also the substance of what they listened to outside of school. So that's really interesting. I had never considered that. It makes perfect sense.
It wasn't always classical music, though. It wasn't always classical.
Fair enough.
A
Yes.
lot of times it was.
Good point. Good point. Yes. Thanks, Krista. That's great. That's a good point. So anybody else want to share specific to that debate about kind of?
I was just going to throw out, I agree with everything you guys said completely. But I'll also add, and two things. One, I am a department chair, and we were in a meeting that we were vamping our elementary curriculum, but we were all there, the whole team from K to 12. And I know I accidentally offended one of our high school teachers because I just brought up, what can we do to reach out to those students who are not in band or chorus at the high school? And it was almost like I was insulting them, and I wasn't meaning to. It was clearly just, I really believe we should be reaching out to, now 100% of our kids are never ever going to all be in music K through 12, but we should at least give 100% of them the opportunity to be in music if they want to, and make it something that they even if they took a few years off between 6th grade and 10th grade or whatever, that they're like, they always feel like they can come home to it, that it's always something that is there for them. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up. The other thing I wanted to bring up is, I don't know about all of you, but I know I've had interactions with school board members that loved music when they were in school. They loved it. And you know those people are your biggest allies. And so if we can continue to just keep building allies, and even if you can't think of it philosophically as a teacher, you know, as an employee of the school district, the more allies you have, and the more you're building those allies, the better everything's going to be for your music department.
Nikki, if I can just jump on one thing you said very quickly, you know, I think I don't know if I'm going to defend or insult your high school colleague here, but I think that, and I'm guilty of this too, that I think a lot of well-meaning high school teachers, because you put this investment in the program, I think that at the high school level, a lot of times the music wing of the school can feel like a very exclusive place.
Absolutely.
And I really have tried to make an effort in recent years. I'm not doing a good enough job yet, but I really think that it does well to think of, how can I make this a more inclusive place? Mm-hmm. And those words are exactly the words, exclusive and inclusive, mm-hmm. that I've recently used talking to some of my administrators about things that initiatives that we're trying to get off the ground. And I think they're just two very helpful terms to articulate mm-hmm. the point you were making. So yeah. Thank you for that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mike, maybe you could speak a little bit to the growth you've seen socially because of the change in music you're offering, and how that's affected your philosophy or your curriculum. Does that make sense? The social changes amongst those, bringing in students that weren't already a part of the group.
Yeah, I think that anytime you open up your program to bring in different kinds of students, it's going to make your wing of the school a little bit more dynamic, and therefore it's going to appeal to more people. I think it can snowball that way. You know, if you just have one archetype of people down in the music room, you know, that's where you get that exclusivity. But if you can bring in some other people, you know, there's, you know, what I would really love, and the conversation I'll go on that I was having with some of my administrators, you know, we were talking about ways to make sure that even our band and chorus programs feel a little bit more inclusive, because, you know, if you get those football players singing in choir, you know, that brings a whole different perspective to your program among the student body. And I think that's, you know, and Terry, to what you asked, you know, bringing in those kids that are interested in popular music, that makes my area a safe space for popular music. And if you like popular music, and that's your thing and that's your stick, you know, no one's afraid to come down to my room, you know, and riff like their favorite pop diva, you know, and that's very important, I think. That you don't feel like that's a place where that's not wanted or not allowed. And, you know, and you invite different types of culture and different types of students down to your room, the more you know, you get the point, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, well, let's see, we already covered philosophy. It will change over time. And if you are unaware of it changing, if you haven't noticed that it's changed, you need to, in my opinion, you need to spend a little bit more time thinking about it, because it's something that needs to be cohesive in what you do. And I have never been in a job interview where they have not asked me what my philosophy is. So before you go into an interview, you need to have a serious conversation with yourself and figure out what it is. And it's okay to say that it's going to change, you know, based on the students I encounter and you know, what I end up teaching, but it's something that you need to think about. And I think Mike kind of already talked about this a little bit with the pop music, but I didn't know if anybody wanted to discuss how your philosophy drives your programming. And I think, Mike, you specifically wrote this in our notes here. How do you define what quality literature is? I didn't know if that was something anybody wanted to discuss, or we should move on. Everybody's tired.
I know that we, oh, sorry, but
I
know that I used to be a little afraid to do pop music when I first started. I really was, because, you know, nobody else really had done it in my district before I got there. And we started sneaking it in here and there, and the kids really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed them enjoying it. And we got to the point where I said, you know what, I'm going to program some heavy stuff for the beginning of the year. We're going to work really hard on some things for our earlier concerts. And then I'm going to let them choose our end concert for the year. We're going to do a pops concert, and I'm going to let them choose everything we do. Now, I don't put just anything down for them to vote on. I can live with all the things that I put down on the list for them to vote on, but they help me write the harmonies. They decide, you know, are we going to add guitar to this? Are we going to bring somebody in? Do we have someone that can play this riff? Should we call the high school and see if they have someone that can play this riff? But it's completely the students' concert at the end of the year, they love that. They are so proud of that. And sometimes we have better musical learning moments with that than we do, you know, learning a Baroque piece at the beginning of the year.
Right. And I think something real important that you just said to point out is that she's not sacrificing her curriculum because she's letting them pick the music, right? She's still using it for them to compose, I'm guessing improvise, harmonize, and, you know, go through all the steps of revising and reviewing and performing as well. So there is a place for all of that to coexist. Did you want to add something, Mike or Danielle? I thought maybe you both were going to talk.
The only other thing that I wanted to add to that, when you talk about programming decisions and different ensembles and stuff, is I think it's a good idea to think about music literacy and what level of music literacy you're wanting your students to be at. And also there's different ways to be musically literate. You know, reading a lead sheet and understanding chord structure is an element of music literacy. Being able to play all of the correct notes on the saxophone in the key of B, that is also an element of musical literacy. And I think that identifying those music, like what elements of musical literacy are important in what classes, and making sure that you're philosophically aligned with the standards and objectives that you're trying to accomplish in those classes can be really, really important.
Good point.
I think the only thing I would add, because somebody said something about good music, and how do you quantify that? How do you qualify that? And I think that's up for debate and has been up for debate for, you know, years and years and years. I think the only thing I would say is that good music knows no genre, that good music is good music. So if you can, when it comes to programming, and of course, all that comes also with just knowing the culture of your school and your students and that sort of a thing. And yeah, I mean, as well, I mean, I was very hesitant to ever bring pop music into the classroom, mostly because I find it so tiring to make sure that there's nothing offensive in lyrics or innuendo or anything to read into. And I'm just like, you know, I don't want to deal with that. But I also find, though, that if I enjoy the song, not because I am, you know, a learned musician, but because it sounds good. And why does it sound good? What is the melody pleasing? Are the harmonies interesting? Is it not too predictable, you know, with following the harmonic structure or whatever it is? But, you know, if it's something that I enjoy, chances are other people might enjoy it as well. And you know, you can kind of have to gauge your students and stuff on that. But you know, if it sounds good, it is good. I think Duke Ellington or somebody said that. And I don't know, I agree.
Okay, so here's where we're at. If I could just do a quick recap before we go into our next part here. Sounds like the main things that I'm taking away from this awesome conversation tonight, and please let me know if I leave anything out, is there's opportunities to be inclusive of everyone in your school. And if that's the philosophy you subscribe to, that should be reflected in everything from your curriculum, your lesson planning, your programming decisions, what's curricular, what's extracurricular. If that's your philosophy, it should be reflective in your day-to-day going on. And then there was another one. Oh, and it also sounds like, even though this is not written anywhere on our plans for this evening, but it seems to be very important, is that another thing that's come out of tonight is everybody feels really strongly that music should be relevant in students' day-to-day life. And that's how you make a great impact. So if you haven't yet had an opportunity to kind of form your own personal philosophy, maybe those are 2 points you could think on and decide for yourself whether you agree or disagree, or how much you agree or how much you disagree. And that might be a place for you to build from. And you'll find once you get into lesson planning and building a curriculum and reading, once you have a job or start a job, you're handed a curriculum and you go through it and you start to work it, you find what works and what doesn't work for you. That's also going to lead you to your own personal philosophy of why you make the decisions you do every day for your students. So it's nearly 8. And we do actually have, Becky is willing to go, and I'm sure she's not going to take too long to go through the steps of the curriculum. And Krista was going to take you through a couple quick steps on actually the writing. So if that is something you tuned in to hear tonight, those actual steps, because believe it or not, those were the actual things that were asked for by student teachers that didn't get to finish their student teaching, was very specific to writing a curriculum for general music. That was the specific request that led to tonight's wonderful conversation. So if those are things you're interested in, stick around. We're going to go over those couple of things. If we've filled your head with so many good things, you can't take any more and you need to head out, we completely understand that too. Thank you for joining us, but and you're welcome to sign off whenever you want. Again, thank you. Thursday's our final webinar. It's going to be a good one. And Becky's going to take it away with, she's going to work through how she does one of her units.
I'm here. When we worked through adding 5th grade into the middle school and writing a completely new curriculum 2 years ago, there was a couple things we kept in mind. Our curriculum director suggested we call it Rhythm and Movement. And she said that the names were just placeholders and we could change it. But I liked it. I liked Rhythm and Movement. I liked the idea of it. That's what we do in 5th grade. So what we did is we built around a couple principles, and we really decided, in the scheme of things, K through 12, something we could work on was building rhythm literacy. And we don't do anything crazy. We're not reinventing the wheel. And so we keep that foundation of rhythm literacy going throughout the 9 weeks. And so we start with our first unit, which is, I think it's beat and rhythm is what it's called. And so we have 25 rhythms, and I can share them with you. This is actually an excerpt from I do the same stuff with my 7th and 8th grade chorus. They keep a journal, and they keep a journal, but I will say this, not everybody likes to journal, and we don't have a lot of time. So I keep a journal and I make photocopies that they glue into their journal. Now, some of them love this, and they take it home and they make their own journal and they make it really fancy, and they like that. When I was their age, I wouldn't have liked to do it either. So I would have just glued it into, but the same rhythms that are on this page are the rhythms that are on my board, and they are on my board the whole year. And they are rhythms that we use constantly. And so we kind of built the curriculum and the activities in the curriculum with these in mind. So we start very simple. What is beat? What is rhythm? We define things. We then move on to a note duration review. We review what is a quarter note, what is a half note. Our 5th grade comes to us in the second half of the year. they haven't had a music class the entire first semester. So we really have to kind of bring them back up to speed, because some of them are in band and they've been practicing in choir and they've been practicing these things. And then about 50 to 60%, I guess, of our fifth graders are in band. So, you know, some of them are like, I know this, and some of them are really like, they forgot everything. So we bring everybody up to speed on that. Then we start some activities. We write in, and then we have to decide, when you're deciding this, how many days are you going to spend on these activities? How many days are you going to spend on this entire first unit? So we do something called color rhythms. It's a composition project, and they get to use these rhythms. In fact, they only have to use one for that composition project. So they use one of the rhythms and they match it to syllables in words that have to do with a color that they were given the first day of the project. We do rhythm bingo. They pick 15 of the rhythms and they have to hear them, and first they write them all, so they're seeing them and writing them, and then they hear them and they can recognize them. So we add rhythm bingo. We have something called speed stomp, where I have a big tub of just random stuff and they get 15 minutes to use 3 of those rhythms in their group and put together their own little stomp routine. We have, we use boom whackers, and we play along with videos, and they compose their own melodies with the boom whackers. And then we do an assessment. And, but all of those things use the same, it is 25 in my classroom. This does have 27 because by the end of 8th grade, they're up to 50 rhythms, but in 5th and 6th grade, it's 25. So we have that, and then we move on to the next unit, and the next unit is ukulele. But we're still coming back to these rhythms because we're going to warm up today, and our strum pattern for warm up is going to be rhythm number 4. And we practice down, down, up, down, down, up, down. And we do the same thing over and over again. And they know that's rhythm number 4. And then I'll mix it up in the middle and say, switch to rhythm 11. And they know exactly where to read it from and what the rhythm should sound like. So we keep enforcing those. And then we move on to, we do something called Drums Alive. And I love Drums Alive. It's like one of my favorite things. And if you don't know what Drums Alive is, we do it in the auditorium. We have these yoga balls that are in these big tubs. And underneath the yoga balls, hidden until they're ready to use them, are drumsticks, just regular drumsticks. And we drum on the balls, and they have nice resistance. And I stand in the middle of this little semicircle. But we also have new rhythms. Now, some of these rhythms look familiar to the kids because they've seen them before, but they don't have the same, I don't use the same numbers as any of the ones in my room because I don't want them to just memorize. Number one is, and here's something else I'll throw out there. If you ever teach middle school kids don't all do very well using the same concepts they did in elementary school. Because as they get older, saying things like ta-ta and tt, they get giggly. And it's distracting. So we change it. And most of the kids can just use numbers by the time we get to Drums Alive. But some of them just really rock on, we use pop for quarter note, pizza for eighth notes, and they can read any rhythm using that. So if they can do it and not be able to count it, I'm fine with that. The rhythm is still accurate. So you have these up, and I'll call out while we're drumming. I'll call out, okay, now we're moving to rhythm number 3. And we use really fun songs that the kids really, really like. And I play it really, really loud. And all the teachers around the auditorium know exactly what we're doing when they hear certain songs. Our custodian can come in and do most of the routines with us because he knows exactly what they are by now. So, but we're still reinforcing the same principles that we were using in our first unit. So we're still taking a lot of the same concepts and we're revisiting them. Our final unit, we read the book Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes. And at the end of the book, we write haikus and pentatonic melodies. And guess what they use for their pentatonic melodies? They use the same rhythms that we had on the board. So you get the picture that we keep coming back to that first unit and we just expand upon it. And our hope is at the beginning of their next school year of 6th grade, it's the first half of the year that they have music. So we're hoping that over those summer months, you know what, I still know how to read those basic rhythms. I still remember, you know, how to count rhythm number 5 or whatever it is. So that's one way we really tried to tie in our curriculum, our new curriculum, to our continuing K-12 curriculum, but also our units, we try to tie them into a unifying theme of rhythm literacy.
Thanks, Becky.
Sure.
Right. I think that was a real clear picture of how you do a lot of curricular stuff built on one. You know, you started out with a small step, which was your end goal. Your end goal was that rhythm literacy. Nice. All right, Krista.
Okay. Okay, so I just wanted to share, when you do a curriculum for the school district, chances are it's not going to be how you want it to be. You're going to have to fit your curriculum into what they give you. So the curriculum director said, this is the way that I want it put in. Basically figure out how to put your curriculum into it. So I picked third grade music, and she wanted it, this is third marking period. So she wanted each grade done by each marking period. And I used the things from PMEA, and I used the things from Music Play, and I used Making Music, and I came up with this. Now, also, I just need to add in that there are all these rumors going around last year that they were going to eliminate enrichments again. So I made sure that I used some music teacher specific terms, and actually they eliminated art and gym and they kept me. So, which, yay, but
Yeah,
you know, sorry for that not working out for them. So anyway, then I have a typo here too. But anyway, so I have the objectives, and this is only what I cover in the third marking period of third grade. And I went through all the PA standards and listed everyone, the essential questions that they wanted. And then she wanted an instructional plan, like, how are you going to do this? So I just wrote that up, and I have the core songs, which are, these are the songs that we're definitely going to get to. I see my kids 30 minutes every 5 days in 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I see them 30 minutes every 10 days in K, 1, and 6 as of right now. But we closed one of the buildings and everyone's coming to the same building, so I might be in a different schedule next year. But anyway, then they wanted, all this stuff was already done. Student and parent communication, this is what they wanted. Student expectations, that's what they wanted. So I just went and did that. So this was just an example of how you need to fit in what we're doing, because to me, this didn't make a whole lot of sense the way that they did it for music, but that's what they want, so that's what you do.
yeah, good point. Well, and I think when it comes to writing curriculum, if you find yourself on your own, reach out for help. I mean, if not to the mentor program, then your cooperating teacher when you student taught, or somebody will be able to connect you, because it's not the first time anybody's done this. And you do often get a template. And the reason is, someone told me this, I have no reason to doubt them, but the school districts have to have curriculum available for public consumption, especially if the school district gets audited by PDE, they have to have that available. So that's usually why everybody's is in the same format. It's easier to collect and have available that way. Also, if they let music teachers do it, it'd be this thick. Yeah. So we always try to do too much. Thank you, both of you, for going over those details so succinctly, and that was great. It was really good. Okay, guys, anyone have anything else that they want to talk about curriculum, or anything anybody want to argue about? I'll play devil's advocate. I'll argue with whatever you got. No?
I just have one thing, honestly. Something just for the new teachers watching, something to think about as you develop your curriculum. At the high school level anyway, please don't fall into this trap. There are so many programs where the fall curriculum from September to about mid-November, it's called marching band. And then there's a little Christmas concert. And then the curriculum from about, January 1st till about mid-March, that's called musical. And then there's a little tidbit right at the end, you know, where you give a spring concert and because some people need some awards. I'm telling you, extracurriculars are great. They're awesome. They're fantastic. I participate in them, but you have to balance that with your curricular program. And I don't think any discussion about curriculum can be complete, especially at the secondary level, if you don't think about curricular versus extracurricular, because that's a gray line. You know, some people have all of their ensembles as extracurricular things, you know, so I'm well aware of that. And I'm well aware that some people can get everything during the day and some people can't. You know, but, you know, putting all of your eggs in the, say, the PMEA festival basket, it's not a great choice because you're only pandering to those kids, or all of your energy in the marching band basket, or all of your energy in the musical basket. You know, you really have to think about spreading your time, your resources, your love around to everybody. And that's just one that I see a lot of people get wrong a lot. So I wanted to mention that. Thank you.
I'm glad you did. I'm really glad you did. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Very
Sure.
important. I won't argue with that.
Okay.
Well, does anyone else have anything they want to throw out there? Anybody want to ask or speak about anything? Go ahead, Ashley.
I'm circling back to when we were talking about like curriculum and having it relevant to your kids. So I just finished my first year teaching, and you know, I tried doing like little polls, like seeing what's their favorite song, who's their favorite artist. Sometimes I hear kids talking about things and I said, oh, well, who's that by? And then I like Google it, and of course it'd be like something awful. But it's just, I don't know. Does anyone have any like tried and true methods besides like taking polls to discovering like what kids are really into and what will really engage them?
Now you teach elementary, right?
Correct.
No, I'm just curious. This is just for me. What school are you at? Because my husband's from Erie and I went to school up there. So I'm just curious.
I'm at Deal Elementary.
Which one?
Deal Elementary.
Oh, okay. Sure, you're Deal. I know where Deal is. All right. So at my age level, I can give them a Google form. They fill it out. They get 2 points if they get it in. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It's easy. Elementary, that's harder. So you know what I find, because I DJ all of our middle school dances, that the 8th graders will start to be into really new music. As you get younger, go back a few years, see what was popular, and they're going to love it because they're going to be a little behind the big kids. And then you have a little control over too. That's my suggestion. That's what I found. If I DJ, like the 6th graders get like a dance after school. It's not even dark outside yet. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And if I play all the really new stuff, they don't know it. And they stand there like, I don't know this. You know what I mean? Most of them don't. Like maybe 5 or 6 of them saw it on a TikTok video. You know what I mean? But if you play, even if you just play like big hits from the 80s, and the 90s and the early 2000s, play some Britney Spears, whatever, at those dances, they love that stuff because they can recognize it. Probably because mom and dad listen to it, or big brother and sister, they've heard it. So I would say for younger kids, pick something fun that is just kind of a universal, everybody likes it kind of deal. I guess that's my suggestion.
Also, if there's any kids movies out that have songs with them, like the Trolls movie was out a couple years ago, the little ones will know it for years. That Justin Timberlake song, they still ask for that.
Yeah, well, that is a good song in their defense. So we do elementary graduations. It's always been 6th grade, but next year it'll be 5th grade. And I always let them pick their songs because it's their memory, it's their graduation. The whole night's supposed to be about them, so why wouldn't the music be about them too? They can suggest any song they want, and then when I give this spiel, my objective that lesson is, I don't know like what the, like I actually have the SWBAT written out as, but basically my point is for them to understand there isn't, to define music good or bad based on the lyrics has nothing to do with the music. So there's music that is considered good in some situations, but the same music would be considered bad in other situations. So we open up a discussion about why this music, hymn-like music is played in a church, and we talk about why their favorite song it's not going to be played at church. We talk about why their song about, my boyfriend leaving me and breaking my heart is a well-written, well-performed song, but it has nothing to, we're not going to do it at elementary school graduation. That's not the place for me. So we that's my objective through this process, is to explore music that's relevant to them in that way. So they can suggest anything they want. I ask them not to waste my time by putting in something they know we can't do, which doesn't happen very often. And then I listen to all of them. I take out the ones that we can't do, and I come back to them the next class and I say, here's why we can't do these. And we open up the discussion about the subject matter. We open up a discussion about the lyrics. We open up to the discussion about there's a reason why that artist gets paid millions of dollars for that song, and try as we may, we're not going to sound like them. So we're not going to try that song because we can't hit those notes, or we can't hold it that long, or something like that. And then what they're left with, they vote on. Mm-hmm. And then whatever gets the top 2 votes for the whole grade level gets to do it. So that's how I let them have an input. For the younger grades, I think the movie idea is a really good idea. I know people that use popular music as reward systems. So like when they get so far, their reward is they get to listen to their choice for 10 minutes or whatever, and then you can have a list already prepared, stuff like that. I've also used it for I had a student once, kindergarten student, would not do anything, wouldn't do anything. And so I sent a note at home and I said, I just want to let you know, I think, your son is capable of way more. I'm not sure why he's not enjoying music. They contacted me right away because his dad is a musician. He gigs all over the town, and he was shocked to hear that his son was so uninvolved in kindergarten music. He could not believe it. He said he'd come home talking about all the things they did that day. And I was like, wait, do I have the right kid? Did I call the wrong parent for a second? So I said to the dad, I said, well, what music do you play? And he gave me some songs that his rock band performed. And I put that on at the next class, one of the songs. This kid did the same dance move for all 5.5 minutes of that song. I didn't even know the kid responded to music at all. And ever since that day, he's done everything I've asked him to. So I don't know what, and to this day, I can't explain what the block was in his mind, that my room was not where he experienced music with his body. It was where he took it in through his brain or something like that. But once I made that connection with his own personal music. So I would encourage you to talk to them, just ask them individually when they're coming in the room, just walking down the hall, seeing them someday, or just ask them. That's my advice. Yeah. I don't know why I decided to talk for so long there, but it's my turn. All right, guys, are we good? All right. Thank you very much, Krista and Becky and Mike, all PMEA mentors, and we can connect you with any of them if you want to work on your curriculum in your future. So just let us know. And last one on Thursday. Hope to see everybody back. Thank you, Marissa. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.
All right. One more to go.
Hey, that went really, really well, I thought. I really do. I think that was